What is up? This is Steve from Stallone's Prowash, and I'm going to take you through how we washed 21 four-story apartment buildings in just 5 days with a crew of 8 people. Now, this project took about 3 weeks to organize with the property manager. There was a lot of back and forth with the commercial service agreement. We did a lot of negotiating in the contract of what the job actually represented. And that's really important to make sure you go through all the details with the property manager to make sure that there are expectations that are met at the end. I'm going to walk you through what one of these properties look like. This is just one of the buildings, of the 21 buildings. And as you can see, the top is just loaded with these spider nests, these spider eggs, whatever you want to call them. There was thousands of them, and it was on every floor. The stairs were full of garbage, lots of stains, lots of grease. And this is really important when you're making the commercial service agreement. You need to really lay out what you can and cannot do. Obviously, all this stuff was not going to come out. We put in our contract that grease and stains, or grease and rust stains, would be treated with commercial grade detergent, but we couldn't guarantee that all the stains would be removed. After we did the first building that day, the first day of arrival, I walked one of the buildings with the property manager to let him know this is what the final product would look like. That way he knew what to expect. I didn't want to do all 21 buildings and at the end say, hey, we're done. And he come through and he's like, oh, well, I thought you were going to get these stains out. So I really made sure to set the expectations with the first building before moving forward. We used about 140 gallons of liquid chlorine or sodium hypochlorite to kill a lot of this mold and algae and to remove a lot of these stains. And then for the grease, we used Gold Assassin and a pump sprayer. One of the biggest things I think we did to make this job successful is the dusting. If anybody has ever worked in commercial property or ever worked with any of these spider nests, you know that as soon as you get them wet, they just turn to mush and you can't get them off. And you're just kind of spraying them around in circles and it's almost impossible to get off. So we went out and bought these cobweb dusters. And we made it clear in our commercial service agreement that the ceilings, lights, everything around the exit signs, everything around the elevators and the smoke alarms, that would all be dusted. So you don't want to be shooting water at all these lights trying to get all these cobwebs down. And for the big stains, we used Gold Assassin degreaser. And that really helped lift all those really deep grease stains out of the concrete before using a surface cleaner. And the hard thing here is that all these flat surfaces, not the stairs, just the flat surfaces, were painted. So what I had to do is I hooked up my surface cleaner that was set for an 8-gallon-a-minute machine, and I actually used that on a 5-gallon-minute machine. So the nozzles were a lot wider, the orifice sizes were a lot wider, so the pressure was only about 1200 psi, so we didn't do any damage to the paint. There was very, very minimal damages in areas where paint was chipping already. And I put that in the service agreement that the client knew that the paint was chipping and that there would be additional chipping to the paint from our surface cleaner. Now, around the light fixtures and the exit signs, I made it clear to the property manager that we wouldn't be shooting much or any water at those areas at all. So the cleaning would be just from the dusting. And you could see, even in these big corners, like really high up, I just used a long pole. You could see all this dust, all this cobweb. Shooting that with a pressure washer just makes it into mud. So We utilized our techs to dust the walls, dust the corners, dust all those areas where uh, those bugs were just piled up. And you could see we didn't even get on any ladders. We used these long extension poles, and we dusted the entire property before even putting any water down. Now this is one of the pressure techs here, Aiden. He was a great help. Him and one of the other techs were doing all these high corners, so they didn't have to get on any ladders. They just used this long extension pole on this cobweb duster and dusted all these corners. So when I got in there and I started downstreaming with the detergents, all this stuff was already gone. Now, this is a little first person view here of what we did. And our process was I had 3 people dusting, so they would stay one breezeway ahead of us. So 3 people had dusters, and they were dusting all the walls and all the ceilings. And then Brian and I would be going up into the buildings after them, after they had dusted. And then we had 2 detailers that came in behind us. And then we had one person, which was my dad. He would work the truck. So we had walkie-talkies, and he was working the truck, turning on the detergents, moving the truck for residents, pulling hoses, putting down degreaser, turning on engines, all the stuff that needs to be done down at the truck, because since this was 4 stories up, it's a lot of work to go up and down. So what I did cleaning this building is I actually downstreamed the whole thing, just using apple blossom surfactant, which the residents really loved it. The smell was really intense, so it smelled really good. It got rid of a lot of that musty bleach smell. And I didn't use any guns. I didn't use any nozzles. I didn't use any downstream tips, soap tips, nothing. I just used the ball valve. So with the ball valve, the more you open it, and this is an 8-gallon machine, 8-gallon per minute machine, and the more you open it to let water out, the injector opens and it'll start sucking chemicals. So right here you can see I'm putting all the chemicals down, just soaking everything before Brian comes and surface cleans the floor. I get all the walls, I get the residents' doors, or especially around the trim. There was like mud dauber nests. And I really made sure to soak the floors good because, like I said, the floors were painted, so we weren't using a lot of high pressure on the floors. We wanted the chemical to do a lot of that work. So while using the ball valve, the higher the pressure that you release out of the ball valve, it'll actually close the injector and it'll shut off the chemicals. The hardest part was the hose management. As you can imagine, hoses are heavy, so you have to pull 100 foot of hose up through these stairwells that are filled with pressurized water. And that was really hard because they want to get stuck in these little crevices. There's little creases here that you can't really pull them through, so what you had to do was kind of give it some slack and work your way around the banister. And once you are around the banister, you can pull it up again through another floor. We originally had 3 engines going. We had one soft wash machine, which was putting down chemicals. We had one person on the surface cleaner, and then we had one person rinsing. But what was happening was it was just getting too much. The hoses were getting too tangled up. There was too many hoses going through the stairs at one time, and then if you went one at a time, what was happening is there was somebody that was always waiting. So we ended up just using an 8-gallon minute machine, and a 5.5 gallon per minute machine. And I stuck with the 8 gallon minute machine. You can see here that I'm just soaping up, putting all the chemicals down, making sure that the floors were soaked from top to bottom. And I would start putting the chemicals down at the bottom. I would start at the first floor, and as I would walk up the stairs, I would just put the chemicals down per floor. And while I was doing that, Brian was up at the top, and he was surface cleaning. So by the time I got to the top, me and Brian kind of met at the same time. And you could see here now where I closed the ball valve some, where now it's more pressurized water, and it's not putting out chemicals. So I'm starting to rinsing all the banisters, rinsing walls, ceilings, making sure that all that debris that falls from the top gets rinsed down. Now, one of the things that's real important in the commercial service agreement was I put on there the details of the cleaning process, and the cleaning process was the removal of mold and algae from the stucco, hardy board, and walls and ceilings. Now, why this is so important is because when we did the walkthrough with the property manager on the first building, he was pointing out a lot of little marks on the walls, like tire marks and grime and little stains here and there. And I said that, I'll work with you, but that's not part of the cleaning process. The cleaning process doesn't involve scrubbing the walls. It doesn't even involve pressure washing the walls. The walls and ceilings was specifically a soft washing method, which I put in the agreement that the soft washing method was 180 psi detergent that was applied to the walls and then rinsed to remove mold and algae. And I even put the definition of what mold and algae was so that there was no confusion. One of the things that was really important too was making sure you're covered with residents' personal property. We did put out notices to all the residents a couple days prior to remove mats and garbage cans and garbage and all that stuff that they leave in front of their doors. Most of the people did. I would say out of each building, there was maybe one out of each building, so it wasn't bad. But some of the things that I noticed is that the residents would leave their item, like their mat, outside, but they would open the door so they knew that we were there. So I just went ahead and cleaned their mat for them. Wasn't a big deal. Didn't really cause me a lot of time. Now you can see I'm up at the fourth floor now, and we would always wash from the top down. And at this point, the building is all dusted. So the walls are, they don't have any of that spider nest down there anymore. It's all been treated with chemicals. Brian has surface cleaned the floors. And now I'm just going through and I'm ball valve rinsing with the 8 gallon a minute machine. And I have hearing protection on. The first day I didn't use hearing protection and my ears were like blown out. It was so loud in there. So we all used hearing protection after the first day. One of the things that I saw with other apartment cleanings is that they would go around and tape the bottom of residents' doors. I found that to be really unnecessary, especially when you're using a ball valve. We had put in the residents' notice that they should put a towel in front of their door for any water that might come through the bottom. Even if we tape the bottom of the doors, there's a good chance that some water would come through. So, in my opinion, the best thing to do is just prepare the resident for that inevitable water intrusion at the bottom. We could have went through and taped it all up and spent hours and rolls of tape doing that, but we didn't get not one complaint of residents having water come through their door. The way I would do that is, instead of you kind of shooting the water right at the door at the bottom, you gotta hit the door about 6 to 8 inches up and kind of bounce it off of the door so that the water doesn't go right under. You're kind of using more of the air of the ball valve to direct the water away. You really got to know how to control water on these jobs. You can't do this job with like a pressure nozzle or a gun. You really need a lot of water. You really need to know how to move all the debris from the surfaces, because things build up really quick. You get a lot of divots, a lot of holes where water wants to build up. So just moving quickly and getting all the debris out of that area is really important. Some of the other stuff that I made sure to put in the the commercial service agreement was the items that weren't included. We made sure to highlight cleaning debris from gutters and the roof wasn't included. Removal of any branches and old leaves was not included. Making sure that if they had inadequate drainage, that we would not be responsible for pumping out water from areas that water might be building up in. Also, we made sure to make sure that they knew that cleaning of bees' nests and spider webs on the exterior of the surface wasn't included. Anything in the breezeway. So if there was spider nests and bees web or bees nests on the outside of the building, that wasn't included in the job. We made sure to let them know that removing of any light fixtures wasn't included. We weren't going to take any of the light fixtures off or down. And honestly, we didn't cover any light fixtures. Me and the property manager spoke about the condition of the light fixtures. A lot of them were already broken when we got there, especially the emergency lights. He said he knew about this problem and he had it in his budget. And we did start taking pictures, but there was just so many that were already broken. What we would do is just direct our water around them, just to make sure that the water wouldn't soak into the light or, burn out the light. So we would just shoot it left and right over the top of the light, and it seemed to work out pretty good. We did create a good schedule that we stuck to. We wanted to clean at least 3 buildings a day, and we ended up doing 3.5 buildings a day. The first day we got 3 done, and we tried to go for 4 on the second day, but 4 was just too much. By the time we went to lunch and got back, and it was really hot out, we were kind of all sluggish, and from pulling that hose, we all had blisters on our hands. We were just beat. So 3 buildings a day was our limit. Now, this project total, we had, let me see. We had a total of 128 breezeways. So we had to move the truck constantly to go to building. We tried to stay hooked up to water. Here's the picture of the meter that we use from the county. We rented a meter and we got a permit to use the local fire hydrants. So we would fill up our tank with the fire hydrants. I bought a 2.5-inch fire hose, so we would fill up a 550-gallon tank with the fire hose. You could see when you get to the bottom here, you really need to make sure you have a lot of water at the end, because there's just so much debris that ends up at the bottom. You really need to be able to push that water out. You can't be running out of water at the bottom, because filling up is what takes a long time. If you run out of water, what you would have to do is roll up all the hoses, and then you would need to move the truck to the fire hydrant. Now, moving the truck to the fire hydrant, that is very time consuming, and it could take up to 15 to 20 minutes. So if you did that 3 times a day, it's like an hour's worth of moving the truck. So my dad did a great job of keeping us hooked up to the hose, the regular garden hose, at the hydrant while we were working, so that the tank stayed full. So by the time we were done with one building, we could just jump right onto the next building. So here at the bottom, you can see, this actually isn't that bad. Some of the buildings had a lot of cans and bags of chips and just all kinds of garbage that come down. And I make sure I get the ceiling, I make sure I get the corners. And you can see at this point the walls are already pretty much clean because of my dusters. I had the 3 dusters go through already, and they did a great job of getting all that stuff off the wall. So at this point, it's just a soft wash rinse. And what I was doing is just getting all the extra debris off the walls. Something that you really need to make sure in the commercial service agreement is to notify all the clients within 48 hours so they know that you're coming. The property manager here did a great job of communicating with them and letting them know that we would be there. So a lot of them already expected us to be there, so the parking issues wasn't so bad. We didn't really have to move the cars too much for too many people. Um, Something that after the first walkthrough with the property manager is I noticed there was a lot of debris on the stairs still. It's just inevitable after rinsing. The water is dripping from the fourth floor down, so it's collecting just some mud and sand from all the floors, and it's kind of bringing it down with it. So after I walked the property with the property manager the next day, I was noticing that there was debris on the walls and little hair here and there and some mud. So that's when I got on the phone on Monday and I hired 2 more people as detailers, and they would take care of all those little details that we would miss in the rinsing process. So they would go through with hand towels, little brushes. They would have a squirt bottle to hit the walls for any mud spots, like the mud daubers on the top of the ceilings, and they would scrub it with a brush and just wipe it down. We just did all the heavy lifting with all the water, and they would come back and detail through it, which really made the property look good. When the regional manager, he actually came and did a walkthrough on Thursday, and he said everything looked really great. So that was something to look forward to. We got really lucky with this job because the weather actually held up. There wasn't any rain, but it was really hot. So making sure that you have a lot of water on the truck is really important. Making sure that your staff is hydrated. I got liquid IVs for all the staff, so I was making them drink water with this IV booster. And here's the detailing. This is Christina. She came in on Friday. We had another woman. Her name was Kiana. She worked with us from Tuesday to Thursday. And this is a clean walkthrough. You could see this is a building that was already done. She's just going through now and kind of polishing up any spots that she sees, wiping handrails, getting around the lights. Sometimes the dusters were going a little faster than they should have been, and the lights weren't done completely. So she would come around and just hit those lights again. Sometimes the positions of those spider webs were in just a bad place, so coming in after and hitting it with the duster really helped after they were already wet, so they kind of just pulled right off. Now you can see how white the floors are. That's really a lot had to do with the downstream injection. The sodium hypochlorite really killed a lot of that mold and algae, brightened up the stairs. brighten up the paint. It did a really good job. And the smell in there didn't smell like musty chlorine because of the surfactant we used. I know a lot of the guys out there, they're like, oh, I never use surfactant. I never use, I always use Dawn dish soap, or I use laundry detergent. I can tell you firsthand from doing 21 buildings, um, using a good surfactant is important. It didn't stink like that musty bleach after it dries. It still had a real nice cherry scent. And when the residents opened their door, they just got this burst of this apple blossom surfactant in their face. And they were just like, wow, it smells so clean and good out here. Nobody wants to come out of their apartment and just smell that musty, nasty smell of rotten old bleach, because it does start to stink after it dries and sits. So the surfactant really helped us out. We got rave reviews from all the residents. They were ecstatic about just how clean it was and how everything was taken off the walls. And it just looked a lot brighter in there, especially around the lights. All the cobwebs were down, so you didn't have to walk through and worry about stuff falling on your head. There was just tons of bugs in there when we first got there, so everything was really nice and clean. And residents started putting their pottery back out. They had a lot of decorations that they took in for us to clean, so we were appreciative of that. And another thing too is all these buildings were slightly different. Some had stucco walls, some had hardy board walls. Some of the staircases had a bar in the middle, which made it really hard for us to pull the hoses through. So you could see those bars right there on the left. So the hose didn't slide all the way over to the end like some of the other ones. So that kind of made it difficult of pulling hoses up. We did try to do a rope method where we would bring the hoses up on a rope on the exterior of the building, but that was an instant fail. It did not work. So you could see Christina here. She's just going through the handrails with a duster, dusting any spots that she sees. Not every handrail needed to be dusted. It was just little spots here and there where some of that stuff built up from dripping down. These guys and girls did a great job this week. We put in about 12-hour days. We would start every morning at 7:30. We'd meet there at 7:30, but it was about a 40-minute drive. So we would leave the house around 6:30, and then we would take lunch around noon. I got the guys and girls all lunch for the week, and then we would wrap it up around 4:30, 5 o'clock. We would try to be done, and then there was another hour drive home because of traffic. So this is the bottom here. You can see it's all clean. Bottom, the floors, the best thing for them to do right now would be to paint. Here's the team here. They did a really great job this week, really hard work. So I appreciate all of them. It was definitely a really big job.